My beloved child, open your ears and your heart. This is a solemn bell ringing from heaven, not meant to instill fear, but to awaken you before the shadows can slip in. The message I send does not end with a warning. It is also a shield that surrounds you. It embraces every breath you take today, covers every wall of the home that shelters you, and stretches into the yet unopened paths of your future. I see what your eyes have not yet seen, and I know that if you disregard this, you will forfeit the peace that was yours from the very beginning. Understand that every word I speak is like blood flowing to preserve the integrity of your life. Your house, what you consider a simple place of shelter, is in truth a living altar, a front line for the soul, and a cradle for the days ahead. If you choose to listen, I will raise a hedge of protection around you so that no power can touch you. But if you refuse, you leave space for chaos to enter. My child, be awake, for today's decision will weave the fabric not only of your own life, but of generations to come. This is the moment of choice, and the love I extend to you now is the only chance to secure your peace, your household, and your future. I call your name not to frighten you, but to draw you out of the inertia of familiar days. For there are things that can only be heard when the whole house is still, when between the soft hum of the refrigerator and the sound of your familiar steps on the wooden floor, your soul finally sits down. I want to speak of the home where you live, not in terms of address or room numbers, but in terms of warmth, of tiny unnoticed cracks, of the faint dampness lingering in the carpet after the rain. I have stood at that threshold, waiting, my hand resting upon the unseen latch, and I know today requires a word of warning. You call it a house, but I call it the cradle of covenant. Every wall has heard your laughter and your tears. Every window has learned to view the world through your eyes. Each time you return, whether weary, doubtful, or rejoicing, the house wears your mood like a garment. My beloved child, open your ears and your heart. This is a solemn bell ringing from heaven, not meant to instill fear, but to awaken you before the shadows can slip in. The message I send does not end with a warning. It is also a shield that surrounds you. It embraces every breath you take today, covers every wall of the home that shelters you, and stretches into the yet unopened paths of your future. I see what your eyes have not yet seen, and I know that if you disregard this, you will forfeit the peace that was yours from the very beginning. Understand that every word I speak is like blood flowing to preserve the integrity of your life. Your house, what you consider a simple place of shelter, is in truth a living altar, a front line for the soul, and a cradle for the days ahead. If you choose to listen, I will raise a hedge of protection around you so that no power can touch you. But if you refuse, you leave space for chaos to enter. My child, be awake, for today's decision will weave the fabric not only of your own life, but of generations to come. This is the moment of choice, and the love I extend to you now is the only chance to secure your peace, your household, and your future. I call your name not to frighten you, but to draw you out of the inertia of familiar days. For there are things that can only be heard when the whole house is still, when between the soft hum of the refrigerator and the sound of your familiar steps on the wooden floor, your soul finally sits down. I want to speak of the home where you live, not in terms of address or room numbers, but in terms of warmth, of tiny unnoticed cracks, of the faint dampness lingering in the carpet after the rain. I have stood at that threshold, waiting, my hand resting upon the unseen latch, and I know today requires a word of warning. You call it a house, but I call it the cradle of covenant. Every wall has heard your laughter and your tears. Every window has learned to view the world through your eyes. Each time you return, whether weary, doubtful, or rejoicing, the house wears your mood like a garment. It beats in rhythm with your heart, grows quiet with your breath. Yet because of this, my child, the house also absorbs what you neglect. Sharp words tossed carelessly, anger caught in your throat, that never dissolves, glances that skim past each other like cold wind. It is not that bricks can think, but the atmosphere carries memory. It is not that a roof can decide, but that the silent orbit of choices accumulates into a climate. I see that climate. I see the unnamed currents drifting through. There is a fracture the eye cannot easily detect, a break between the clean surface and a weakening foundation. You have tidied shelves, rearranged the kitchen, replaced burnt-out bulbs, but deeper down where words are formed and habits are shaped, cracks are crying out, You say, "I see nothing wrong." I reply, "Because the crack hides behind the words, 'It's fine,' you have spoken too many times." There are forces that do not enter through the front door. They slip through the gaps of unhealed exhaustion of evenings where a screen dominates the dinner table of reluctant smiles and nods given only to end the conversation. They sign quiet contracts with distraction, and one day you will realize the house no longer welcomes you as it once did, not because the walls have changed color, but because peace has shifted away. Do not rush to doubt yourself, nor to blame others. I have not come to point fingers, but to point the way. I tell you this, there is a current of darkness thin as smoke, yet clinging like oil. It does not spread by explosions, but by misplaced silence. When you lock the door with the words, "I'll deal with it tomorrow," when you turn a blind eye to a phrase that extinguishes the spark of hope, when you joke with sarcasm and call it wit, in those moments the threads of peace are stripped away. I have seen it many times, houses that appear serene, yet closets filled with coats of resentment, bedrooms scented with fresh linens, yet pillows soaked with unspoken apologies. You still live, still love, still control what seems good, but your peace is no longer as natural as breath. It becomes something you must search for. Why do I speak to you today? Because there is a shift of seasons. Not one marked on a calendar, but one moving within the space that belongs to you. The harvest of your household is about to blossom. There are relationships waiting at the threshold doors of work, an opportunity already oiled and ready to open, and dreams once folded away now longing to unfold. Yet a change of season is also the moment when strange winds can slip in. The destroyer rarely uses violent force. It only needs you to forget the small latch of vigilance. It whispers to you in the language of haste, "Let it go, it's nothing." It reminds you that everyone does it, and in that whisper it plants a seed of mold. You do not notice it right away, but weeks later you sense the stale odor of discouragement. I will not allow that scent to linger, for it does not belong to you. I urgently call you back to the gate of your home, literally. Stand at the threshold, place your hand on the knob you unconsciously turn each day, and take a deep breath. Name what you are carrying in from the outside: fatigue, the news, half-finished conversations, nameless anxieties. Then, my child, before you cross the doorway, whisper to me, "Cleanse this entrance and exit." There is no need for elaborate rituals, no need for ornate words. I hear what is sincere. People consecrate precious objects. You too can consecrate the passageway of peace. Learn to step through the door as if entering a covenant, without dragging in the machetes of yesterday, without hiding stones of judgment in your sleeves. I also want you to lift your eyes to the ceiling where your gaze seldom rests. The roof shelters you from sun and rain, but it also symbolizes what hovers over your awareness. If the cloud above your head is always comparisons, doubts, and endless calculations, then even an intact ceiling makes your heart cold. I do not promise to replace the roof instantly. I promise to change the sky within you. But for this to happen, I need you to place a chair in the center of your living room. Sit down, turn off every machine, and call each room by name as though greeting family. Living room, kitchen, bedroom, balcony. With every name spoken, I set my seal. In the beginning, I named things to separate light from darkness. Today, you name them, so that boundaries may be redrawn within your home. The floor, too, is worth your attention. Dust falls there every day, and you sweep it daily. Yet there are other layers of dust unseen. The dust of promises left idle. The dust of some days stretched into nevers. The dust of habits that erode tenderness. Ask me, which foundation bolt in my house needs tightening? I will show you the small ones: a fixed hour of conversation each week, a meal without screens, an agreement not to speak harsh words before sleep, an apology given on time. Did you think I would speak only of lofty matters? I am speaking of the craftsmanship of peace. Peace is not accidental. Peace has structure, blueprints, and a schedule of maintenance. You may ask, why don't you push the door open and do everything yourself? Because I am the one who created freedom, and it is my love that keeps me from forcing you. I stand at the door and knock not from weakness, but because I want your house to truly be your own. My warning is not a midnight siren that alarms the neighbors. It is the early lamp that shows you a nail protruding before a child trips. If you ask with humility, I will not only point out the nail, but also place a hammer in your hand. I do not merely say, "Be careful." I teach you how to become the keeper of your home. I invite you to re-establish a simple yet powerful ritual, the ritual of presence. Each time you return home, let your shoes pause on the doorstep a moment longer, as if you were shaking off the mud of hasty decisions. Let your hand trace along the wall in gratitude for the rooms that shelter you. Bless the windows, so that through them your gaze may see not only the street but also opportunities to love. Speak softly to your chairs and tables. May the conversations upon you never carry the edge of knives. You are not speaking to objects. You are speaking to your own heart. The objects are but signposts that help your heart remember the way. And finally, my child, hear this, not as a closing sentence, but as an opening one. Your house is waiting to become something different. Not different in furniture or style, but different in atmosphere. I am bringing the climate of active peace, of gentleness, with discipline of joy that knows how to restore itself. Yet climate does not change simply because the windows are open. It changes when you decide to let the light remain. Today I warn you because I love you. Today I call you because the time has come. Today I stand at the very threshold, my feet as firmly set as on the day I laid the foundations of the earth, and I ask you, do you hear the turning of the lock within your heart? If you do, I will enter, not as a guest, but as the master of peace. My beloved child, now I will draw back the veil so you may see what human eyes cannot. The house you step into each day, where you believe there are only sounds of laughter, conversation, and clattering dishes in the kitchen, is in truth a battlefield wider than any field outside. An unseen war is taking place there, not with clashing swords or flowing blood, yet its influence seeps into every word, every glance, every small habit within your home. You may think you are simply living ordinary days, but in reality, every morning you wake, you have entered a front line. That is why Scripture has written, "For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places." Ephesians 6:1-2. Understand this, my child, flesh and blood, meaning the people of flesh and bone around you, are not the true enemy. A family member may speak a word that wounds you, a friend may betray you, a neighbor may provoke your anger, but behind those conflicts lies another force at work, an unseen hand pulling the strings. It is that power which sows doubt, breeds misunderstanding, and fans careless words into deep wounds. And the battlefield it most often chooses to sow disorder is not the noisy streets outside, but right within your home, the place meant to be a fortress of peace. Do you see? The enemy does not fear fleeting pleasures of the world. It fears a household filled with love and my presence, for there lies the cradle where strong generations of faith are nurtured. Think back to the times you returned after a long day. Perhaps you longed only for rest, yet complaints arose, frowns appeared, cold words slipped into the meal. You thought it was only fatigue, but in truth, that was the moment darkness took advantage of the cracks. It does not storm in with violence. It slips quietly through the small paths, through a touch of selfishness, an impatient sigh, an old memory never forgiven. Do you see? Every small choice you make to forgive or to hold a grudge, to lift up or to tear down, to pray or to neglect, becomes a sword stroke deciding which side prevails in this house. The home is indeed a battlefield, for there light and darkness face each other every day. Light needs no introduction. It radiates from a heart that loves, from a whispered prayer, from the atmosphere shaped when you place me at the center. Darkness, too, requires no permission. It seeps in through doubts, accusations, seeds of envy, and long nights when prayer has ceased. And you, yes, you are the one who holds the banner. When you choose to believe me, you raise the flag of light. When you choose to ignore my word, you hand darkness the chance to set up camp in your very room. Do not think this is merely spiritual theory, my child. It is far more real than you imagine. The children in your house sense the spiritual climate, even when you say nothing. They learn to love or to hate from the atmosphere you nurture. Your spouse may be lifted up or weighed down by the unseen presence surrounding the dinner table, the bedroom, the living room. Even guests who step into your house enter into a climate that is invisible, where they may be healed or they may leave heavy. And all of this begins with the battle taking place, a battle you cannot avoid. Remember this, the enemy does not fear that your house has fine furniture, tall walls, or wide gates. What terrifies it is when prayers rise from within. It trembles at the sound of songs that glorify me. It despises when love is given freely without calculation. For every such act is like an arrow piercing into the darkness, and every sincere prayer is like a wall of fire encircling your home. The enemy knows this, which is why it chooses to attack through division, through the whisper that says, you no longer need to pray, through the slow erosion of faith. But my child, I bring you good news. Victory does not belong to darkness. Light always prevails when it is chosen. Darkness can only remain where light has withdrawn. This means that as long as you stand firm in faith, as long as you choose to keep the fire of prayer burning, darkness has no right to claim your home. Yes, the battle is real, but the outcome is determined by your daily vote. Forgiveness is a vote for light. Anger is a vote for darkness. Prayer is a vote for light. Indifference and silence are a vote for darkness. It is that simple, yet its consequences are eternal. Imagine your house as a small city. Each room is a gate, and every word is a key. You hold the power to open the gate for peace to enter, or to let chaos come in. You can hand me the key to your bedroom so that I may guard your sleep, or you can hand it over to restless anxieties that rob you of rest. This unseen battle is not far away. It is so near that it shapes the smiles or tears on the faces of those you love. My child, I call your house a battlefield, but also a place of triumph, if you choose rightly. Do not fear when you hear the word battle, for I do not speak to make you tremble. I speak to awaken you, to teach you how to wield spiritual weapons, not swords of steel but prayer, not armor of iron but righteousness, not shields of bronze but faith. I have already equipped you, and all that remains is for you to put it on. Therefore, from this day forward, do not see your home merely as a place of rest. See it as the front line of the soul, where every choice of faith echoes into heaven. Your house does not merely shelter your body from rain and sun. It is the place where you and I together raise a fortress against the darkness. This is the truth. Your house is the battlefield of light and darkness, and the outcome always rests in the daily choice of faith you decide to make. My beloved child, at this very moment I stand at the door of your heart and knock. My knock is not loud, but it is urgent, not hurried but pressing, not threatening but filled with love. I call you to lay down your pride, to set aside the arguments that resist, and to listen to my gentle yet unwavering voice. Open the door to my presence, the only protector who can raise an unshakable wall around your soul and your home. Remember, ignoring this warning is not merely turning away a message, it is refusing the very chance of protection. I do not send this word to frighten you, but to save you. Not to fill your heart with fear, but to awaken it in time. For when you do not open the door, darkness interprets your silence as an invitation. My child, I see how many times you have tried to carry everything on your own. You think that by being just a little stronger, a little busier, a little more determined, everything will eventually work out. But in rushing to hold yourself up, you close the door of your heart, leaving no space for me to enter. Lower your defenses and do not worry about how others may see it. In my sight, weakness is the very condition that allows my strength to be made complete. You need not hide. You need not pretend. I do not wait for a flawless person to come to me. I wait for an honest heart willing to open and let me dwell. Do not think that opening the door for me is complicated. It begins with a single whisper. Stay with me. Those words may sound small on your lips, but in heaven, they resound like thunder. My child, imagine this. Your house is like a fortress under siege. The enemy stands outside waiting for the slightest gap in the gate. But right now, I, the protector, am standing at the door. If you invite me in, I will not only lock the gate firmly, but also raise a wall of fire around it, forcing every power of darkness to retreat. Yet if you ignore this warning, you are the one pulling the bolt from your own gate. I love you too much not to say this plainly to disregard. My words is to hand the keys of your house to the enemy. And I do not want to see you, or those you love, wounded because of hesitation. This is not a game of emotions. This is the survival of your soul, the peace of your family, and the foundation for the years ahead. My beloved, step out of your hardness of heart and let it soften like fresh soil after the rain. I call you to listen not only with your ears but with your heart. Do not rush to analyze, do not compare whether these words are like or unlike those you have heard before. Let your heart perceive. For once I enter, the atmosphere around you will change. The house will seem brighter even if the lights are the same. The air will grow warmer even if the weather outside remains cold. Your loved ones will find their laughter again even if circumstances have not yet shifted. For I do not bring decoration, I bring myself, the source of peace, of life, and of protection. Therefore let this moment be urgent yet filled with love. Like a father who sees his child about to stumble, I run not to scold but to catch. Like a mother who sees her child asleep in a fire, I shake you awake not to terrify but to rescue you from being consumed. You do not need to fear me. You only need to know that I care for you more than you care for yourself. Do not delay, do not think tomorrow I will open my heart. Tomorrow has not come, but today is passing. This is the time of decision. My beloved, I invite you to let me be the defender of your house and of your life. Do not let carelessness become the open door for darkness. I have knocked, I still knock, and now is the moment to respond. When you choose to open, you give me the authority to build a stronghold around you. From that moment, not a single arrow of the enemy will pierce through. All I desire is a heart that bows, a mind that listens, and a spirit ready to open the door. You will see that ignoring this warning is to miss the greatest opportunity of your life, the opportunity to be protected, to be at peace, and to live under my covering arms. My beloved, I want you to sit in silence and reflect on the place you call your home. You often think it is simply a shelter from sun and rain, a space to return to after a long day, a collection of bricks, cement, wood, and objects arranged for use. But I want to open your eyes to see your house is not merely a structure. It is a living entity, a mirror reflecting your inner state and your spiritual condition. Its walls bear witness to every laugh, every tear, every heavy silence, every whispered prayer. Its roof covers not only your body but also your hidden anxieties, hopes, and dreams. Every corner holds a fragment of your life story, and that story does not end with material things, it reaches into your soul. The house, in my way of seeing, is a sacred book of memories. It carries the happiness of the day you first stepped across its threshold, the joy of family meals shared in unity, but it also holds the silent tears shed in the night. The chair where you once sat waiting for important news still echoes with the tension of that moment. The old wooden table where you and your loved ones spoke late into the night still lingers with the faint sound of laughter. The walls, repainted many times, still carry the shadows of embraces, the sting of harsh words, and the weight of belated apologies. My child, the house is the place where time cannot erase what has been carved into it through emotion. That is why this space becomes a mirror to the soul. Whatever fills your heart, the house reflects it in return. When your heart is full of peace, you will sense warmth filling every corner, even if the house itself is plain and modest. But if your heart is troubled heavy with bitterness and doubt, then no matter how large or luxurious the home may be, it becomes nothing more than a cold, empty shell. That is why I want you to understand that the house does not simply display social standing or outward wealth, but it reveals the health of your spirit and the state of your faith within. I do not look at the red tiles or the stone floors. I see the unseen atmosphere that cloaks your dwelling, the climate that you and your family breathe in each day. Pause and ask yourself, do you feel a lightness and restfulness when you enter your home, or do you carry a weight, a weariness, as though the four walls are pressing against your heart? Do you hear laughter filling the kitchen more often, or do words of blame overshadow it? Do you find rest in your bedroom or only restless anxiety? These feelings are not random. They reveal the spiritual atmosphere that hovers over the home. And my child, that atmosphere is shaped not only by circumstance but by the choices you and your family make. Every word of love, every act of forgiveness, every moment of prayer lights up the house like a lamp. Conversely, every outburst of anger, every selfish act, every cold indifference opens the window for darkness to creep in. The house is a symbol of the soul. You may sweep the floors, polish the windows, and repaint the walls so that others may praise, but only I see the true foundation inside. A cracked wall is not always the work of time. Sometimes it is the scar of a wound that was never forgiven. A leaky roof is not only the result of storms, but of neglecting prayer and letting faith slip away. A cold room is not simply due to lack of light, but to the absence of my presence. The more you try to hide, the more the house reflects the truth. I see it all not to condemn, but to remind you that caring for the house is caring for your soul. I want you to remember the words of Scripture, "Unless the Lord builds the house, the builders labor in vain." Psalm 12:7-1. You may pour wealth and effort into constructing a home, but if I do not dwell within, it remains empty. On the other hand, a small room, a modest dwelling, if filled with my presence, becomes a palace of peace. Therefore, do not be preoccupied with appearance, but let me build the foundation with faith, stronger than any cement or stone. The house is also the place where the next generation is formed. Look at the children in the home. They learn how to love or resent, how to be patient or impulsive, how to pray or be indifferent, not from textbooks, but from the spiritual climate they breathe each day. The family table can become a pulpit teaching forgiveness. The living room can be turned into an altar of prayer. The bedroom can be a place where seeds of trust are planted through bedtime stories. Conversely, if the house is filled with arguments, neglect, and words, lacking respect, it becomes a fire that consumes the next generation. My child, the future of those you love begins right in the home where you live today. I also want you to understand that a house does not remain still. It changes according to every choice you make. Each time you bow your head in prayer, the house is clothed with another layer of light. Each time you extend your hand in forgiveness, the foundation becomes stronger. Each time you open my word and read, the walls are anointed with oil so that the fire of darkness cannot cling. Conversely, each time you allow anger to reign, the stones sink a little deeper. Each time you let bitter silence linger, the ceiling grows darker. Each time you shut the door against me, the house becomes more clouded. Therefore, be watchful. Your house is a living spiritual structure, and you are the one entrusted with the power to determine whether it shines or fades. Consider carefully. The house is where you begin and end each day. It is where you lay down the burdens of the outside world and regain strength. It is where you laugh, cry, and grow together with your family. But above all, the house is the living altar I desire you to raise before me daily. If you allow me to dwell at the center, the house will become a sanctuary where love flows abundantly, where peace surpassing human understanding covers all, where my light drives out the darkness. My child, I invite you to look again at your own house. What does it reflect about your soul? Does it echo with the sound of prayer or only sighs? Does it carry the fragrance of forgiveness or merely the stench of bitterness? Does it shine with love or dim with indifference? Be honest with yourself, for I have seen it all along, and still I stand at the door ready to transform everything as long as you grant me the authority to be Lord. Do not take your house lightly, my child. It does not merely protect your body from wind and rain. It shapes the soul, the emotions, and even the destiny of generations. A house is a symbol, a measure, a mirror of faith. If you place me at the center, it will become a fortress no power can break. But if you ignore me, it will be nothing more than an empty shell easily overtaken by darkness. Let your house become a living testimony of my love and my presence, so that anyone who steps inside will know this is not just a dwelling but a sacred home, a place where I abide and pour out my blessing. Beloved child, I want you to listen and reflect on the atmosphere within your own home. There are times when you step inside and, instead of feeling relief, you sense an unexplainable heaviness. No one is shouting, no loud noises are heard, yet an invisible veil hangs in the air, shortening breath, draining joy. Do you recognize it? This is one of the signs that the house is under influence. What the physical eye cannot see can still deeply affect the soul. A room may be scrubbed spotless, yet, if unease has crept in, it becomes a place where peace is hard to find. Let me describe it more clearly. There are evenings when the family sits together, but instead of sharing, each person is absorbed in their own glowing screen, the blue light masking the widening distance. No harsh words are spoken, but the silence is thick, heavy as stone walls. Or sometimes it takes only something small, a cup, placed in the wrong spot, a careless word, and suddenly it erupts into an argument. Cutting words are flung like knives, followed by frozen silence. These wounds cannot be seen with the eye, yet they smolder within each heart. This is precisely when I want you to pause and ask yourself, could it be that your house is under an unseen influence? I know you often think that all tension stems from personalities, habits, or life pressures. You assume it is only fatigue or misunderstandings and that it will eventually pass. But I want you to open your spiritual eyes to see that sometimes unrest is not just a fleeting emotion, but a signal. When heaviness lingers, when conflict becomes constant, when bitter words are spoken as routine, then, my child, it may no longer be just a matter of emotions. It may be a spiritual influence silently eroding your home. Pay attention to these signs. Sometimes you feel restless, without any clear reason, as though someone is watching you or a shadow is lurking nearby. Sometimes troubling dreams come repeatedly, turning sleep from a place of rest into a battlefield. At times, ordinary conversations suddenly shift into heated arguments as though an invisible hand has changed the atmosphere. And at other times, discouragement creeps in right in the midst of moments that should have been filled with hope, stealing the joy of the whole household. You may think it is merely a mood, but I tell you, some moods are the result of an invisible war. I ask you, what if this is not merely an emotional issue, but a spiritual attack? If every moment of unease is in fact a signal that a force of darkness is trying to gain entry, would you still dismiss it? If every harsh word is actually an arrow fired from the shadows, would you still believe it is nothing more than a hot temper? My child, the enemy is far more cunning than you imagine. It does not always reveal itself with open hostility, but more often hides in the smallest details of daily life. It sows seeds of division through careless words. It creates distance through unhealed silences. It nurtures resentment through wounds left unforgiven. And when you overlook these signs, it finds more ground to take root. Do you realize that a house which should be a refuge can become a battlefield if left unguarded? From such a battlefield, the darkness can plant fear, erode faith, and cause you to forget the joy that once filled your home. I have seen many houses that outwardly appear peaceful, but within echo with a cold silence like abandoned rooms. I have seen many families who still live under the same roof, yet their souls are as distant as if on different planets. My child, this is not a natural condition. It is the result of a spiritual assault that has gone unrecognized. Therefore, I want you to stay alert. I do not say these things to make you panic, but to open your eyes. You must understand that such signs cannot be taken lightly. A house that loses peace within will soon lose its strength without. I have already declared, the thief comes only to steal, kill, and destroy, but I have come that they may have life and have it abundantly. John 10:10. Ask yourself in your house what is more present, life or destruction, peace or chaos, joy or despair. If you notice unease that lingers, if you see conflicts that no longer feel coincidental, if you hear harsh words becoming habitual, then it is time to look beyond the surface. You must discern this is not just a matter of psychology or personality, but a signal that darkness is pressing in. And my child, there is only one way to safeguard the house. Open the door for me, the protector, to come in. Where I dwell, darkness must retreat. Where my presence rests, peace is restored. Where I am placed at the center, the house becomes a true refuge, no longer a battlefield for the enemy. Remember, the house is not just a dwelling place. It is the cradle of faith, the place where generations are nurtured, the symbol of the soul itself. Therefore, do not dismiss the invisible signs. See them as reminders to return to me, to call upon my name, and to rebuild the atmosphere with prayer, love, and forgiveness. Only then will your house be secured, and only then will your soul find rest. My beloved child, I do not speak so that you will only see the darkness or remain trapped in worry. I am the God of hope, of renewal, and of new beginnings. Even if your house has endured many storms, even if the walls seem soaked with tension, I still declare it can become a living altar of my presence. My child, your house is not destined to imprison conflict and unease. On the contrary, it can become a sanctuary where I dwell, where prayers rise like incense, where forgiveness becomes the common language, and where love is restored like a stream that never runs dry. Imagine this, my child, if the living room were not just a place for hurried conversations, but a place where the whole family bows their heads in prayer. If the dining room were not only for sharing meals, but a banquet of gratitude where every word of thanksgiving becomes a song lifted up to me. If the bedroom were not only for resting the body, but a place where your soul finds peace in my promises. When that happens, every room becomes a holy chamber in a living temple. And do you know, my child, you are the priest in that temple, the one who offers prayers, forgiveness, and love, transforming the home into a living altar. My child, the key to a transformed home is not material renovation, but spiritual rebuilding. A stained wall may still stand firm if it is covered with love. A narrow room can become a palace if forgiveness fills it. A simple house can shine brightly if prayer rises daily within its walls. I do not look at size, I look at atmosphere. And atmosphere is created by small yet steady acts, a prayer before sleep, an embrace of forgiveness after an argument, a moment of silence to listen instead of quarrel. These seemingly small things have the power to break the chains of darkness and open the door for me to dwell. Remember this: when you forgive, the house is set free. When you choose love instead of anger, the atmosphere changes. When you call upon my name, light bursts forth. Scripture declares, "But as for me and my household, we will serve the Lord." Joshua 2:4-1-5. This declaration is not merely a slogan, but a vow that turns a house into a place of service. When you proclaim it in faith, the entire home is placed under my power. You will witness the atmosphere shift. Unease will vanish, conflicts will subside, and peace will spread. Let me share a secret with you. The enemy trembles before homes that become living altars. It does not fear high walls, locked doors, or modern security systems, but it trembles before a household united in prayer. It cannot endure the atmosphere of praise. It despises seeing one person humble themselves to ask forgiveness and extend grace. It flees when my name is called upon. Therefore, when you choose to turn your home into an altar, you are not only protecting your dwelling, but building a spiritual fortress that no force can penetrate. My child, I want you to believe that this transformation can take place even in situations that seem hopeless. You may think, my house is too broken. Can there still be hope? I answer, yes, for I am the restorer. You may sigh, we have quarreled too long. Can love still remain? I answer, yes, for I am the source of unfailing love. You may feel, we have neglected prayer for too long. Can we return? I answer, yes, for I am the one who always waits with open arms. My child, there is no crack too wide for my healing, no home too dark for my light to shine through. Begin with small steps. Choose a moment each day to pray with your family, even if only for a few minutes. Choose a kind word instead of a harsh one. Choose a hug instead of turning away in silence. Choose to read a verse of scripture instead of drifting in indifference. These little steps are the stones that build the living altar. Over time, you will see the atmosphere of your home change, like a dry garden refreshed by rain where trees come alive, flowers bloom, and fragrance spreads. Your home was never meant to be a cage for division, but a witness to my love. When others enter, they will not only see furniture, but feel the sacred atmosphere as if they have stepped into a safe place, warm and full of light. They will say, here is a peace we cannot find anywhere else. And my child, that in itself will become a living testimony of who I am, the one who transforms, the one who protects, the one who brings peace beyond understanding. So do not despair. Do not let the signs of darkness convince you that your home is lost. See them instead as reminders to act. You can begin today. Place your hand on your door and declare, this is the dwelling of the Lord. Look around your living room, bedroom, and kitchen and whisper, may your peace fill this place. And when you do so with faith, I promise I will answer. I will turn your home into a living altar, and you will see peace flow like a river, love spread like a fresh wind, and hope burn bright like an unquenchable flame. My beloved child, I want you to be awake and alert to recognize the schemes of the enemy. It does not always come with great calamities or obvious disasters. Often it sows chaos with tiny particles of dust, seemingly harmless. Yet over time they ignite a fire that can consume an entire household. Your family was designed by me to be an embrace of protection, a dwelling where love and faith are nurtured, but the enemy never wants such a place to exist. It trembles before unity, for where there is genuine love, there is my presence. It despises the sight of a family holding hands in prayer, for collective prayer is the most powerful weapon to shatter its power. Therefore it seeks to scatter seeds of division, suspicion, and weariness, gradually drawing you away from spiritual life. My child, I will show you each step of its work. First, it sows division. Division does not always begin with loud anger. Often it begins with an unexplained frown, a word spoken impatiently, a small misunderstanding left unresolved. These things accumulate like pebbles cast into a river, eventually building a dam that blocks the flow of love. Husbands and wives begin to speak less, parents and children drift apart, and siblings allow bonds of kinship to harden into distance. The enemy knows that if it can isolate you from those you love, you will begin to feel alone, and loneliness is fertile soil, where doubt and fear easily take root. After division, the enemy sows doubt. It whispers in your mind, that person does not truly love you, they only care for themselves. Be cautious, do not trust too much. It sounds reasonable, but it is a flaming arrow aimed at your trust. A family that no longer trusts each other becomes strangers, sharing the same roof. Each person retreats into their own room, erecting invisible walls. Doubt shuts the heart, and when the heart is shut, love has no ground to grow. Remember, this love and doubt cannot coexist in the same place. When one grows, the other must wither. When division and doubt have taken root, the enemy fans the wind of weariness. Weariness here is not merely physical exhaustion, but the fatigue of the soul. You begin to feel that every effort to preserve the family is useless. You want to give up, to stop caring, to stop conversing, to stop praying. I have seen many sit in their own homes, yet their souls are like empty vessels, their eyes vacant. That is when weariness has turned into paralysis, and in that paralysis the enemy whispers, just let it be. Just get through the day. My child, beware, for that is the step closest to collapse. From division, doubt, and weariness, the enemy reaches its greatest goal, to sever you from spiritual life. It knows that if it can keep you from praying, from reading my word, from drawing near to me, it has already cut you off from the only source of strength that keeps your family standing firm. It makes prayer feel burdensome, a duty rather than a joy. It makes you think, I am too busy, I will pray tomorrow. But tomorrow becomes the next day becomes a week, and before long prayer disappears. It makes you feel estranged from Scripture, as though it were a book only for holidays, no longer relevant to daily life. And when spiritual life is neglected, your home becomes a fortress without soldiers, easily overrun. My child, I speak this not to make you afraid, but to awaken you. You must recognize how the enemy operates in order to resist it in time. You cannot fight spiritual schemes with human wisdom. You can only stand firm when you choose to place me at the center, when you replace division with love, replace doubt with trust, replace weariness with rest in me, and replace apathy with worship. Remember, darkness does not simply fade away. It disappears only when light appears. And that light is I, the Christ, the light of the world. So ask yourself, are the tensions in your home merely personality clashes, or are they strategies of the enemy? Are the times you avoid prayer simply busyness, or are they traps to draw you away from the source of life? Is your weariness only the weight of work, or is it an arrow aimed at your faith? Do not underestimate these things, for the enemy does not need to demolish your house with a sledgehammer. It only needs to carve a small hole in the foundation and let time do the rest. And if you do not awaken in time, that small hole will become a deep chasm. My child, I speak to you, do not allow your family to become a trophy of darkness. Be watchful and strong. Pray without ceasing. Love more deeply. Forgive quickly. Trust even when you have reason to doubt. Step into my rest instead of letting weariness drag you down. And above all, hold firmly to your spiritual life, for it is the cord that ties you to an unfailing source of strength. When you do this, every scheme of the enemy will collapse, and your family will stand firm like a house built upon the rock. Beloved child, I know your heart sometimes trembles when you hear of the invisible battle and the schemes of the enemy, but I do not want you to live in fear. I came to give you a steadfast hope. I am your protector, your sheltering embrace, your fortress that cannot be breached. I declare to you, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. John 8:1-2. This is not merely a verse to read for comfort, but an eternal promise, a truth that never changes. Darkness may surround you, but the moment light appears, darkness must retreat. My child, I am that very light, and if you remain in me, darkness has no right to linger in your home or in your soul. Understand this. My power is not equal to the power of darkness, it surpasses it beyond measure. Darkness is no match for me. It only exists where light is withheld. When I step in, fear trembles, chains fall apart, and curses are shattered. You do not need to seek another protector, for no one can shield you better than the one who has conquered death, crushed the power of the grave, and risen in glory. You may rely on your own strength for a time, but weariness will eventually overtake you. You may lean on others, but no one can be with you always. Only I, Christ, am the one who never leaves you, and my power reigns above every force of darkness. My child, remember the times you thought you could not go on. Yet here you are, still alive, still breathing, still with the chance to hear my word. That was no accident. It was proof that my hand lifted you through days that seemed impossible. When you believed every door was shut, I opened a way. When you felt alone in a dark room, I lit a small flame, just enough to keep you from collapsing. And if I did that in the past, why would you doubt me now? My child, I am still the same yesterday, today, and forever. Believe that when I say, whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, it is no empty promise. It means that in your life's journey, even when you pass through valleys of shadow, I will be the lamp at your feet. It means that in your home, even when signs of tension and unease appear, I will be the unshakable source of peace. It means that in your heart, even when wounds run deep, I will be the healing light. And when this light shines, there is no corner left for darkness to hide. Picture this: when a room is sealed, darkness rules. But let in just a sliver of light, and the darkness vanishes instantly. That is the nature of light. It does not need to struggle. It only needs to be present. In the same way, I do not need to strain to push back darkness. I only need you to open the door of your heart and allow me in. Then my presence alone is enough to drive it away. Therefore, my child, what matters is not how hard you try to fight, but whether you let my light shine. If you open the door, I will do the rest. Beloved child, the enemy may threaten, but it has no final authority. It may roar like a lion, but its fangs have been broken by the cross. It may stage a drama to instill fear, but in reality, it is nothing more than a defeated foe I have already overcome. I do not tell you this so you will grow careless, but so that you may remember you do not enter this battle as a victim, but as one covered by a victory already secured. All you need is to remain hidden in me, and my protection will cover every part of your life. I also want you to understand that my power is not only to protect, but also to transform. I do not merely raise a wall of fire around your house. I also change the atmosphere within it. I do not only block the darkness from entering, I also heal the wounds that already exist inside your family. Where there is doubt, I plant faith. Where there is bitterness, I pour forgiveness. Where there is weariness, I grant new strength. Where there is distance from the Spirit, I restore the longing to worship. I do not simply keep your house safe. I make it a place overflowing with life. My child, hear my voice. No force, no power, no plan of darkness can overcome my light. If God is for us, who can be against us? Romans 8:3-1. This word is your assurance. When I stand on your side, every scheme against you is rendered powerless. You do not need to understand every tactic of the enemy. You only need to hold my hand. You do not need to know every path in the future. You only need to walk in my light. And as you follow, each of your steps will be imprinted in brightness, never swallowed by the shadows. Therefore, do not let fear take possession of you. Replace fear with faith. Replace anxiety with prayer. Replace anger with forgiveness. Replace darkness with my light. And you will see that your house is not only protected, but also becomes a beacon shining for others. Those who enter will recognize something different, a peace that cannot be explained, a love that cannot be measured, a hope that cannot be extinguished. This is the mark of my presence. My beloved, I know every crack within your soul. Not a single tear falls without my seeing it. Not a single sigh rises without my hearing it. Many times you have asked, is it possible to begin again when everything is broken? I declare to you, yes, it is possible. It is precisely in brokenness that my strength and grace are revealed most clearly. You do not need to hide those shattered pieces because I am not seeking outward perfection. I am seeking a heart willing to place all its brokenness into my hands. When you do so, those very fractures will become the places where my light shines most powerfully, testifying that I am the one who transforms, restores, and breathes new life. Remember what the scripture has written. My power is made perfect in weakness. 2 Corinthians 1:2-9. What does this mean? It means that when you consider yourself strong, you seldom come to me. But when you are weak, when you are broken, when you have no place left to lean on, that is when you open the door for my power to move. Weakness is not the end. It is the beginning of a new journey, a journey where you no longer depend on your own strength, but allow me to carry you each step. When you rise from the ruins through my power, the world will see that this is not your achievement, but a living testimony of my grace. My child, brokenness was never meant to destroy you, but to strip away pride, to tear down illusions of self-reliance, and to bring you back to me. Brokenness opens the door to restoration. Just as a seed must break open in the soil for new life to grow, so it is with your life. The cracks in your soul, the shattered dreams, the collapsed plans, all these can become the ground where new life springs forth if you place them in my hands. But if you cling to the fragments, they will continue to wound you, cutting you again and again. When you surrender them to me, I will piece them back together, not in the old way, but in a new way, more beautiful, more steadfast, more glorious. Look at the lives of those who came before you. Abraham once wrestled with doubt, yet in that weakness he learned what it meant to trust in my promise, and he became the father of many nations. Moses once broke down in guilt after taking a life fleeing into the wilderness. Yet I turned that failure into the beginning of a mission of deliverance. Peter once denied me 3 times, thinking he had lost everything. Yet through restoration he became the preacher through whom thousands believed. Do you see, every brokenness, when placed into my hands, becomes the stage upon which my grace shines forth? Look again at your own household. Perhaps it was once filled with laughter, but now only sighs remain. Perhaps it was once warm, but now it has grown cold. Perhaps your loved ones were once close, but now each has built a wall around themselves. My child, do not be afraid when facing this reality. I do not speak to plunge you into despair, but so you may know this: I can rebuild. If you place your home in my hands, I will restore it from the very foundation. The cracks within your family will become marks of love when I mend them. The words that once wounded will become memories of forgiveness. The losses will turn into stories of my provision. My child, I am calling you to step from brokenness into restoration. Do not see weakness as shame. See it as an opportunity for me to display my strength. Do not see failure as the end. See it as the stepping stone for a new beginning. Do not fear your tears. Let them become streams that water the seeds of hope. Do not cling to the shattered pieces. Place them into my hands, that I may craft them into a more perfect picture. Imagine this. When a clay vessel breaks, it can be discarded, or it can be pieced back together through a new art. The Japanese call it kintsugi, the art of joining fragments with gold, turning cracks into precious veins. That is what I do with your life. I do not hide the cracks. I use them to reveal my glory. And when others look at you, they will no longer see only weakness, but the power I have revealed through you. They will declare, "This is the Lord's doing, and it is marvelous." My child, I say this, so you may know that restoration is not only for you, but so you may become a witness. When you tell your story, how I lifted you from brokenness, how I turned weakness into strength, your very testimony will lift those who are in despair. You will become a shining lamp, a living proof that my grace is sufficient for every circumstance. Therefore, my child, give me your broken pieces today. Stop trying to patch them together by your own strength. Kneel and say, Lord, I give you everything, my wounds, my failures, my tears, and when you do, I will begin the work of restoration, not a temporary patch, but a complete recreation. I will turn pain into lessons, weakness into strength, failure into testimony, and your household into a place overflowing with peace. My beloved, I know you often fear when confronted with your own limits. You are accustomed to living within what is safe and familiar. You believe that if you keep everything within reach, you can avoid failure. But I tell you, it is precisely when you come to the end of yourself that you will see my power. Limits are not a full stop, but a doorway leading you into the unknown where only faith will keep you standing. I have not called you to remain forever in comfort. I have called you to step out that you may witness miracles which you would never experience within the boundaries of safety. Remember Abraham. He was settled in his homeland with family land and position. Yet I said, leave your country, your people, and your father's household, and go to the land I will show you. Genesis 1:1. It was a call into the unknown, with no map, no clear schedule, only a promise. Abraham could have refused, choosing the safety of what he knew, but he believed me and stepped forward. In that risk, he became the father of many nations, and my promise was fulfilled. Do you see, had Abraham not dared to step out, he would have missed the great miracle. Think also of Moses. He stood before the Red Sea, behind him a trembling people, and the Egyptian army in pursuit. Every escape was blocked. That was the ultimate limit. No human could cross the sea. But I said, raise your staff and stretch out your hand over the sea to divide the water. Exodus 1:4-6. Moses might have thought, this is impossible. I only have a staff, yet he believed and obeyed. The result was the sea parted, and my people walked through on dry ground. The miracle came only after Moses obeyed in the unknown. My child, the same is true for you. Many times, you will stand before your own sea circumstances with no way out, limits you cannot overcome. But if you place your trust in me, you will see me make a way where none seem to exist. And remember Peter. When the boat was in the middle of the sea and the waves rose high, I appeared and walked on the water. When I said, come, Matthew 1:4-9, Peter dared to step out of the boat. That first step was a step into the unknown, into the place where reason insisted it was impossible, where the experience of a fisherman declared he would surely sink. Yet he placed his trust in my word and he walked upon the waves. Only when he turned his eyes to the wind did he begin to sink. But even in that moment, my hand reached out and held him. My child, do you see? The miracle did not occur while Peter stayed safely inside the boat, but when he dared to step into uncertainty. My child, I know that limits make you anxious. You see yourself as lacking strength, lacking experience, lacking resources, lacking courage. But it is precisely that lack which becomes the space where I reveal myself as the one who is enough. If you believe you can do everything on your own, you would not need me. But when you dare to step out in weakness, your faith connects with my limitless power. And you will witness wonders, not for your boasting, but so you may know that all glory belongs to me. Limits are not walls to stop you, but thresholds inviting you deeper into the journey of trust. Like a child learning to walk, it must let go of its parent's hand to take the first steps. It may stumble, but in the stumbling it learns how to rise stronger. So it is with you. I want you to believe that even when you falter in the unknown, my hand is still there to uphold you. Not a single step taken in faith is wasted. Every step is woven into the story of a faithful God. Remember, the safe zone never gives birth to miracles. Only when you dare to step beyond the familiar do you see me act beyond human understanding. You may say, I do not know what will happen, but I say, I know, and I go before you. You may worry, what if I fail? I answer, if you fall, I will lift you up. You may fear, what if I am not enough? I affirm, my grace is sufficient for you. So do not let your limits hold you back. Let them become the launching pad from which you see the miraculous. My beloved, learn from Abraham, from Moses, from Peter. They were ordinary people, limited just as you are. Yet when they placed their faith in me, they became witnesses of my power. So it shall be with you. If you dare to step out, you will see what you never thought possible. Your house, your family, your life will become a testimony that I am the God of the impossible. Therefore I call you today, do not be afraid when you face your limits. See them as my invitation to step into the unknown. Take my hand, walk in faith, and you will see me turn the unknown into the realm of miracles. My beloved, there is a kind of darkness that does not come from outside but dwells within you. It is the inner darkness. It is not the night that covers the sky, nor the blackout that plunges a house into gloom. It is the silent shadow within the soul, the undercurrents of fear and doubt, the whispering voices that confuse you in your spiritual journey. You may endure the trials outside, but if you do not face the darkness within, it will slowly erode your strength from inside. That is why I want you to confront it, not to leave you in despair, but to teach you to discern truth from falsehood and to discover freedom in my light. First, let us speak of fear. Fear is the most familiar of shadows, yet also the most silent enemy. It often begins with a small thought. What if I fail? What if I lose what I hold most dear? What if I am not enough?